Hi, this is Laylee with In Vivo Leadership Strategies, and this is Integrity Over Scale podcast. Welcome to Integrity Over Scale podcast. I'm your host, Laylee, and I am here with Bree, and I'm so happy to have Bree here. So, Bree, can you tell us more about who you are and the wonderful work that you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm Breeanya Hinkel. I live in Prescott, Arizona, born and raised, which is pretty rare around here. And I own Prescott Woman Magazine, and I've had that for about 9 years now, but been a part of it for a lot longer. I'm sure we'll talk about that. And then I also am the Director of Community Relations for the Better Business Bureau in this area, serving all of Northern Arizona. So wearing a lot of different hats, but all business related, which is exciting.
The work that you do, especially for the women in the community, is phenomenal. There's also, I do want to mention the award that is for women in Prescott too, every year. Can you tell us more about that too?
Yeah, definitely. So, next year will be year 5 for the Prescott Woman Awards, which was something I created to honor the everyday woman. So it's not just for the business owners or philanthropists in the area, because we do have awards, other award programs for them, but this is for women that are serving within an organization or company. Just to mention, one of the awards is Feeding the Soul. And so that goes to that is in the food industry. So sometimes it can be business owners, but we've had baristas be honored, bartenders. So it's really exciting. So we have 10 different award categories that are really fun. And it's an exciting award ceremony. We make sure it's not pretentious and it is there. Women come dressed whatever they're comfortable in. So we've had police officers in uniforms and we've had women in ball gowns, right? And it's just so fun because it's all about celebrating women in the community and every little thing that they do.
Well, I want to celebrate you today because you have done so many wonderful things for Prescott in general. And amongst the many pieces of the puzzle that you are solving for us, one of them is Prescott Women Magazine. So I want to ask you, what led you to Prescott Women Magazine?
So it was started by somebody else. We're hitting now 22 years of being Prescott Woman Magazine, which is amazing. And I started with the publication 19 years ago. And my background is in graphic design. And so I started as their layout and ad designer, which was so amazing. And then we survived quite a few different things like a recession, so many ups and downs that it forced me to, or allowed me, I should say, to wear multiple hats within the organization and learn more and more about the business aspect of it. And so then I was able to purchase it from the previous owner 9 years ago and, weathering storms ever since, but it's fantastic.
And what are some things that are featured in the magazine?
Yeah, so obviously women, right? But what I love about it, it's a community magazine. So I've been honored to be able to sit down in like a lobby somewhere and see a gentleman reading the magazine. Because we've always told stories that are female focused or about women in the community, but we also have such a strong community focus. I mean, it is a fully local magazine. So we only honor local people. We've had local writers. So it's been really fun to be able to feature different things. So women's wellness is a big part of it, obviously. And then women in leadership. We do one that's called just Women of Prescott because we do have a big retirement community here. And so maybe those women aren't feeling like they're leading now, but they were leaders then and they're doing something exciting in retirement that we want to talk about. And then we do family articles or community events. So we feature a wide range of different things that we feel like the community is interested in, but women in particular.
With all the work that you're doing, you're meeting a lot of women, you're speaking to them from the awards to the magazine. How has your work in helping women thrive in their business or in their life shaped who you are?
It's always about the stories for me. So when I first started, I was more in just the layout and design. And it was so interesting because as you're doing that kind of layout, you're also, of course, reading the stories, seeing what is interesting to pull out. And so just even from that sort of younger age of getting involved in the community up until now, it's just always been about the stories. So it's like so amazing to hear what women are doing in the community, because then it makes you think, well, if she can do that, I can do that too in some aspect. Or if she was so driven, what's stopping me? I think it's been so many different stories where it's even made me further my education more, because it's like, oh, I can go back to school. Why not? Other women have done that and been so successful in their middle life. And so I think that's what's so amazing, is that there's always a story to tell. Every woman has an amazing story. I think we all kind of keep that close to home, but when you start to share that story, it just makes it expand for everybody. So there's that snowball effect of when you hear something that's inspirational from another woman or person, any human, you then can take away a piece of that, and then it maybe inspires you to inspire somebody else later with something. So I think I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for the magazine and for all the women that I got to meet along the way and worked with, I work with dynamic women that are not just doing writing or editing or any of that. They're leading their own businesses today. So it's just, it's exciting. And I hope, people get the same takeaways if they go. We are now digital, which we can talk about, but you can go online and read a story every day, which is fantastic.
Well, talk to me about the digital piece of it. I would love to learn more, and I'm sure the listeners would love to learn more.
Yeah. I know it was a big change. So after 21 years, I like to joke that our magazine grew up a little bit and wanted to have a little freedom. And so as any 21-year-old would, right? And also big change for me too. We went digital in the new year. So our last print edition was December, January. And now that we are into 2026, we are a fully digital publication. So the biggest change, of course, is that you can't just pick up a print magazine at the local newsstand, but you can get it in your inbox twice a month. Still great, fantastic stories. And you can also go on social media, or you just go on the website anytime you want. There is no paywall or anything, so it is still free stories, which we've always done. And you can subscribe. There's no subscription fee. It's a way for us to continuously tell stories into the future forever, which is the goal, while I get to kind of tell my own story for a little while too, and do the Better Business Bureau and move forward in another career, but get to keep, the magazine, which was always important to me.
Thank you so much for that. And I think, it as much as our society progresses, we have to progress with it. So if it's digital, if it's social media, speaking of social media too, I do want to plug in your podcast too, because you also talk to women and a lot of amazing human beings, like you said, come onto your show and talk about themselves and talk about how being women in their career has helped them thrive.
So the podcast actually came out of that COVID era, which was, as we all know, challenging times. We all know that. And it was a very interesting time to be a publication at that time, because small businesses were having to shut their doors for what they didn't know time-wise would be. Businesses were hurting. Our magazine was so much in doctors' offices. We couldn't be in doctors' offices anymore. They didn't want any of the, germs, right? So we were trying to find ways to tell more stories. And so, yes, social media, we kind of took off on that during that time, but we also started a podcast, and it has changed over the years. But back then it was called Empowering Women Got a Minute, which is a mouthful, which is why now it is called She Spark. So it was a way for us to continue to tell stories, and we could do it just like we're doing now, but be able to also touch those people that maybe don't want to read the story. They want to hear the story, or they want to see the story. It is a weekly podcast, and it's 20 minutes so that you can listen to it in our area through a short commute. And it's just a fun, dynamic conversation with women who, are on fire. They're doing such cool things. And you're going to be a guest, which I'm very excited about.
Thank you so much. Well, we have a wonderful friend of ours that's mutual, and she said she would love us to talk and discuss women in leadership and what that looks like. And so my next question is more of you and I discussing, just to honor her and of course honor the women that are listening to this podcast. What I really want to talk to you about is, we both have listened to a lot of stories from women, And I know we both know there are some ways we can help women rise in the workplace and business. So I would love to hear some of the pointers that you have and for us to discuss that together.
Yeah, I guess some of my top pointers that come to mind right away are to listen, to really take in from those around you what they're saying and what their business goals are, what they're looking to do, what their successes are. Because once you listen to that, you can then take on that information and then, put that forward in whatever way that you can. So listening is a top thing. Learning, I feel like as a leader, you always continuously have to learn, trying to learn. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever keep up, but, trying to learn like what is the latest in AI or technology or communication skills, through intergenerational workplaces. That's something I'm working on continuously. And so I think, listening, learning the L's, and because that leads to leadership, which is that third one, right? But I think, off the top of my mind, those are a couple of my biggest ones. I'd love to hear yours because I know you're a leader in your community too.
I love everything you said. I think listening goes such a long way. I almost want listeners who are helping women thrive think about it this way. A lot of women have been told that we are in this box, that this is where we belong. And then I think lately I'm seeing, even for myself, that box gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And what needs to happen is sooner than later, that box needs to go away and we need to just be there without thinking about the limitations that are there. I was actually listening to an interview that Shania Twain did when she was 31 years old. And she said, I can't, when I'm 60, I'm probably not going to be wearing these crop tops and singing. And then there was another flash of her being 60 years old with a crop top singing with a crowd full of people. And I think it's just that is helping women understand that this box is not going to be the limits that they're going to be in. It can completely open and you can pursue the world the way you want to. And people need to encourage that more. So to me, the word encouragement really stands out in that discussion.
I
Yeah.
completely agree. And I think that is because it's empowering too, right? That encouragement and we see it, I feel like my algorithm is very much that, which I'm lucky, right? It's a good algorithm of empowerment and women and female focused. And there was one I posted the other day, and I don't think it was on the magazine. It was probably on my personal page, but it was something like, you can do it all, but you also don't have to.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's also a great message is you can do it all. But there's also times where you're like, I'm tired. I'd like to just not do this right now. And I've had a friend and a guest on my podcast before where she's like, no is a full sentence, So being able to say no to
Yeah.
certain things, I probably have said this on multiple podcasts because of her, but no is you saying no to things that don't serve you allows you to open up to say yes to the things that do. And I think that is a really important thing as women, as humans, as leaders, to be able to say, like, this isn't serving me. And so I want to focus on this. And it can be, so opening to be able to have that freedom to say, oh, now what? If I'm not doing this that wasn't serving me, what can I do?
You also mentioned AI in there, and I really want to plug that in. I've had so many guests that have covered the AI topic. When you said it, I thought, okay, Bree really understands there's a gap with AI and women. What have you learned about that?
Now, I am still learning. There is a gap with a lot of that technical stuff, right? I feel like it's not always served to women in the same way that it's served to men, especially in business or in leadership. So I think as women, or even maybe because a woman of a certain age, or, getting older and it wasn't something that was familiar before, it's like we have to go out and search and find and educate ourselves on it. Right. It's
Mhm.
like, it's not going to be just served to you because they feel like maybe you're not the demographic that's going to use it. But it's coming, right? AI is here. It is not going to stop and it's going to come full force. So learning how you can adapt along with it and learn how to utilize it in ways that are like very beneficial to you, I think is really important. So I feel like self-education is always one of my biggest things, right? If you
Yeah.
don't know what it is, find out. And if it's going to serve you, then you really want to find out because you want to be able to utilize that for I mean, even some everyday tasks or for business, and you don't want to fall behind. And I think that's the thing is AI is going to propel people, forward in whatever way. Who knows what that looks like exactly? And I think if
Yeah.
we want to use AI for good, we really need to learn how to harness it ourselves.
It's really interesting because there's a Harvard study that was done where they found out women are 25% less likely to use AI tools than men. And then there's even more research showing that there's latest evidence of competence penalty. There's a really great article that Forbes wrote. So one study showed that, well, when women use AI to write resumes, they're evaluated as less competent and less trustworthy than men who submit identical AI assisted resumes. So there's so many different obstacles as women that we go through. And even when we are using this technology, we're judged very differently than men are. What has been, in your opinion, when you're looking at things like that and hearing a lot of women's story, what has been something that's really deeply touched you in the stories that you hear and the obstacles?
Yeah, I think, because there's obstacles for women in almost every career because of just, society, and we're pushing forward. But I think it's always been interesting. And that was, well, I'm going to go back to the Prescott Women Awards real quick because we honor one of our awards is called the Rosie the Riveter Award. And it is to honor women who are in a predominantly male field. And what I think is so interesting, and I say this at almost every awards, it's like that is almost every field, right? At one point, that's almost every field was probably more male dominated. And so it's interesting to honor these women because they're women now that are in, we've had horse wranglers, large equipment operators, some different things. And so what's interesting is to hear their stories, I think, as we think that society is changing, there are still these places in the work field that are so dominated by men that these women are just trying to get ahead, still trying to prove themselves. But then that trickles down to everywhere, right? Where we're always still trying to kind of prove ourselves in a room. We want to have a seat at that table. We want to have a voice to be a part of the conversation. And so I don't think there's one story that has ever stuck out to me where I'm like, wow, she overcame a lot, because there's so many that have those kind of moments within the story that are that. And we've all been there, right? We've all been in a room where you're like, maybe you say an idea and then a male counterpoint says the same idea, just worded slightly different a few minutes later. And they're like, that's an excellent idea. And you're like, well, that's, wow, novel.
I said that 6 months ago.
Okay, and I mean, I'm lucky now. I mean, I've been lucky to be owning Prescott Women magazine, because that wasn't the case, right? We all had a voice, we all had equal voice, and we're telling stories. And I'm also lucky to be a part of the Better Business Bureau, because they are very, it's an equal opportunity. Everybody has a voice. There are tons of women in leadership, and it's an amazing opportunity because they really promote the women too. We have this thing with our Better Business Bureau, and it's coming up in Phoenix, August 21st, I think, and it's called the Industrious Woman Summit. And so they bring women that are kind of those Rosie the Riveters, that are in this workforce where it's predominantly male driven, and they have a summit that just is them being able to talk openly and have keynotes about what it's like to be a woman in a male-dominated world in with their workforce. So it's really cool that the Better Business Bureau, and it's why, I felt really comfortable moving in that direction, was that they really want to hear that female voice, and I think, and honor it, and you feel like you have that same seat at the table.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for discussing this with me. I want to gear more towards your story, and I'd love to hear about it's been your proudest achievement in your work.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny because whenever I hear this, I think of making it past COVID with a print publication. And it's so funny. It was such a hard time. And we made it we were still in print 6 years after. But it was a time where so many publications across the United States, or I mean, probably around the world, were having to shut down because they just couldn't make it. And there were so many female-led publications that I followed that just didn't make it during that time. And I think that is one of my proudest moments of being able to try to. It's when I went heavy on digital already and social media and revamped the website and took all that time to really push that part forward. But also, I'm so proud that we were able to stay moving in print and be able to continuously tell stories during a time where there were so many unknowns. So I have in my office still a framed copy of our June, July edition during that time, because obviously in print, you're always working on a deadline that's super ahead. Well, I think it went to print in May of 2020. So during kind of right after during all the shutdowns and everything, all still very unknown. And it was that edition, we said it was just called Prescott Strong. And we had everybody just submit pictures for the cover of what they were doing or how they were adapting or what was going on, just to say, like, we're still here. We're Prescott. We're still here. And we're all working really hard. And we're all trying to support local and each other. And I think that was one of those pivotal moments where it was like, okay, you can do hard things, I guess, you can really do hard things. And then, and secondly, I think also getting the job with the Better Business Bureau, after putting in 19 years, or at that time, I guess 18 years, as somebody that had been self-employed for so long, you kind of wonder, are you hireable? Are you desirable and hireable? And would people want to hire somebody that has been so independent and doing their own thing? And, taking a chance on myself to apply for that job and also go through the interview process and have them say, yeah, we want you, we want you to lead this campus and do these things, was just such a achievement for myself, because it made you feel like all this hard work that you've done on your own business is still transferable to something else, and you're not stuck. You're not always stuck. And I think that's kind of like we were talking earlier about the box. I felt like I was kind of in a box for a while of like, this is who I am. I do Prescott Woman Magazine and that. And then it was like, but what's next? Because that's, and so to be able to break out of that box and move forward in my own life was really exciting.
Wow. I love everything you said about what your proudest achievement was. And especially as someone who has admired you. And, this year I was so lucky to meet you, and hearing your story from my side, I think, I can't believe Bree thought they wouldn't even have to take her for an interview, because you are just there's such a great energy about you, and your smile really lights up the room. And so what you do in Prescott Women Magazine and Business Bureau and the awards and the podcast, it shines through. And it almost makes me giggle to think, Bree cannot be thinking this ever. Like, this is not okay.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's women like you and women that I have in my world that were like, yeah, go for it. Right. But it is still, we all have that little fear in us of like, I want to say it's not being accepted, but kind of, we're just not, you feel like maybe you're not the right fit for something, or you are not good enough, and it is so nice to have a community of women that are saying, no, you're good. Yeah, you're more than good enough, and you can do this. And and I think, and I too am honored to have met you too, because I got to see you present recently, and I thought, oh, this is a woman to know. She's doing really cool things. And like, you have such strength and wisdom. And so it's mutual.
Oh, thank you. That means the world to me. And, for us, this is the moment where maybe this question was perfectly placed, because we're lifting each other up. And I think that speaks so much about where women need to be, is to help each other and lift each other in moments where we go back to that box again. We feel like we're so contained in there that we cannot lift ourselves up. What are some ways women can lift themselves up on their own?
I think I'm going to go back to education, but on a like kind of different note. I'm not a big self-help book person, but I am a like self-help meme person. And so I think two ways, right? If you are somebody that wants to dig into a self-help book, I do think that those are so valuable. I have such great friends that like they get such value out of that, right? And it is, you're educating yourself on to how to feel better or do things in a different way or think things differently, right?
Yeah.
But I also am such a big thing of like self-help memes, so it's like the short spurts of like positive things. And so you can follow Prescott Women Magazine. You could follow so many just like kind of women empowerment social media things. And sometimes it's just those little moments of like, somebody created this and I'm not alone. Other people are reading this and they're having that same thought as I am, that we needed that in that moment, right? And it's sort of a community aspect around that. So I think doing that, I think finding fun, right? Like we work hard, and as women, I'm not a mom, but like so many women are moms, they work, they're wives, they're friends, there's so many things to so many people, and you need to find that moment in your life where it's just for you and it's fun. And it can be, like, so I started water aerobics recently, which is so, to some people would be like, oh my God, are you wearing like one of those hair pieces? And
That's
no, not that. But
amazing.
yeah. And it's so fun, and it's exercise, and it's a moment for myself, and it's a non-judgment zone, right? There's women and men of all ages in there. And it is just sort of like 1 hour of you feel like you're a kid again in the water. Like I'm on summer break for an hour, and you're getting all this like movement and fun. And so I think for women, if you can find something like that, it's not going to be water aerobics for everybody, but maybe it's a hike. Maybe for fun, you just want to read a book for some time. Just kind of having that time where it is just for you. Put it in your calendar if you're one of those. Like I am kind of sometimes where I'm like, I call it an appointment, because then people, will be less likely to bug you if you're like, I have an appointment with myself. And so, those are just some of the ways I would say that I find to be uplifting as a woman.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Do you have any advice for our listeners today that they can take with them?
Advice. My gosh. I do think going back to finding what serves you, saying no to what doesn't, and saying yes to what does is the biggest advice I've ever been either given or adapted in my life. So back to COVID, before COVID, I felt like I had to be, as the owner of the magazine, be everywhere and everything to everyone, right? Like, be at every single networking thing, be at all of these events. And it wasn't serving me, and it wasn't really serving the magazine, and it was an energy sucker to me. So then when COVID hit, and it was like this hard stop on all of it. And then when I reemerged, it was like, where do I want to spend my time? And it was finding, more time for joy for myself, more time for friendship, more time for doing things for the magazine that actually serve it, right? Like, is that just putting in a little more time on social media or some of that? So I think my advice is definitely to focus on what makes you really feel good in your life, and just start to, like, even if it has to be slowly, say no to the things that are not.
What a good way to come to the end of the podcast. Of course, my last question is, you're fabulous, you're wonderful, you're amazing. Where can we find you? Where can we work with you?
Yeah. You can find me in a couple different ways. So PrescottWomanMagazine.com, of course, is the big one. And then we're Prescott Woman Magazine on Instagram and Facebook. If you go to the website, you can subscribe to getting the articles in your inbox. We only hit it, we hit it twice a month so that you have a little set of stories to see. So it's not junk mail. It is very informational and fun mail. And then for the Better Business Bureau, I'm located, our campus is here in Prescott, and we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 3 on Grove Avenue. And you can also go to bbb.org and you'll find me there.
Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. And thank you to the listeners. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Again.